Hey there, I am back with another Free the Pip Friday where we crack the seal on some of the rarest decks out there. And this week we're going to my favorite designer out there, Giovanni Meroni of Thirdway Industries, for a look at Egoism Peacock Edition. This is the second version of Egoism that's been created. The first one was released earlier this year with the Egoism Rust Edition. It's a great deck in its own right, and it's Thirdway's take on a classic deck of playing cards. Has lots of standard touches to it, but of course given that Thirdway twist both in the artwork and in the little bits of lore that surround the deck as well. I'm a big fan of the deck, and it's really meant to be more of a player's edition deck. You can see that from the standard glossy finish tuck case, and really just all throughout, just much simpler finishes to the deck overall. But for his Patreon subscribers, Giovanni wanted to do a more deluxe version of the deck, and that's what we get with the Peacock edition of the deck. Now, this is what's known as an Eternal Edition deck. Basically, these are decks that are exclusive to Patreon subscribers. So if you like what you see here, definitely recommend checking out the link down in the description where you can consider becoming a patron for yourself. And there's going to be more of these exclusive editions that are put out in the future. There's some of the rarest decks of the Thirdway line. In fact, there's less than 600 of the deck that you see here. And really just some beautiful finishes to bring these up to the next level. But that said, let's get into Egoism Peacock Edition and see what makes this one so special. All right, now I mentioned this is that take on a classic deck of playing cards, but with a Thirdway twist. And the lore starts with the name of the deck, Egoism. Egoism is a philosophy. It's from a guy named Max Stirner, and it's this idea that your actions are primarily motivated by your own self-interest. And so you're going to do what's going to be best for yourself first and foremost. It's an interesting philosophy, and it's the one that lent its name to this deck that you see here. Now, where the Rust edition of the deck, the standard version of the deck, had a tuck case that was printed by USPCC, the Peacock edition has one that is printed by the craftsmen over at Clove Street Press. They do some of the best tuck cases in the world, absolutely phenomenal work with their letter pressing and embossing, and you can see that used to full effect on this one. It's done on a matte cardstock, a really interesting shade of blue here, that peacock blue, phenomenal color. Really like that, and mixed with that navy blue ink. It's a really cool color combination. Interesting choice for the color combination, by the way. So oddly enough, Egoism, there's a flag associated with Egoism. Had no idea until I started doing a little bit of research, but this blue shade that you see here is actually pretty close to the shade of blue that's used on the flag. Call that an accidental design decision. That wasn't part of the plan when Gio picked the color for the deck, but I think it's a happy little coincidence and a nice fitting match for the color of the deck. But what really makes this one special is the embossing on this one. This one's embossed to give it a full-on leather-like texture, and it's really unique and really beautiful. You can see here, but I'll zoom in so you can really see that really kind of organic feeling leather texture. It even feels a little bit like dried leather. It's a really unique look to the tuck case, unique feel to the tuck case, and one I've really only seen used one other time. If you saw from Pure Imagination Projects, they did the deluxe Lone Star deck that had a similar texture, and I think it's absolutely outstanding. But the design work on this one, you can definitely get the Thirdway vibe all the way through on this. Lots of line work and just sort of an explosion of different little bits of symbology all throughout the front of the tuck case, and a lot of familiar symbols that you can probably pick out from other Thirdway decks. Things like the wings or the snakes, chains and lightning bolts, all little elements that you'll find on a lot of different Thirdway decks. You get that large spade pip at the bottom, complete with the sort of TW for Thirdway in the middle there. Beautiful look to it, and then Egoism quality playing cards. On the sides, you get Egoism on one side and on the other. Bottom has your ad copy for Giovanni and Thirdway Industries. Mentions these are made in the USA. So both the tuck cases and the cards themselves are printed in the USA. And then on the top here, a couple more little lightning bolts shining there. Back has a version of the back design of the cards, color matched the rest of the tuck case. And of course, gives you a nice big canvas for that beautiful leather-like texture. And it's finished out with a holographic postage stamp style seal. Features a character here. This is the god of ego in the center, and they're numbered. I got number 556. I believe there were 577 of these decks produced in total. But really cool holographic seal in there. Opening it up, Get a couple more snakes there around that broken chain. And kind of hard to read here with that texture. There's a Latin phrase there. It says audentes fortuna iuvat. That's something you'll see on a few other Thirdway decks, but this means fortune favors the bold. Get little snakes here on the inner flaps and nothing printed on the interior of the tuck case. So really unique feeling tuck case, outstanding and unique texture to it that I think just makes this one really, really special. That's the tuck case. The other special element of this, you may have caught a glimpse of it, is the gilding that was done on this. That's right, this is a gilded version of the deck, and it is really, really cool. It's done in what he calls it a holographic petrol color. Basically, it's this bright blue color, but if you hit it just right in the light, it's a little hard to catch here, but you'll see little glimpses of the holographic shine. Get that little rainbow shine on it, almost kind of a color changing effect as you turn this in light. It's a really cool finish to it. Big fan of that. So that's the other special element, both the tuck case and that gilding. Otherwise, the cards themselves are the same as what we saw in the Rust edition of the deck, but we'll go through them just so you guys can see the entire package. So very, very nice. All right, starting with the back design. Here it is. It's done in just in two colors. So you get that blue, that kind of dark blue, and then copper metallic inks. Really, really heavy use of a super shiny copper metallic ink. So this one kind of glows as you turn it in the light. And it has a lot of line work that's really familiar if you've seen a lot of the other Thirdway decks. Has a classic feel to it overall, the two-way design with this sort of circular elements top and bottom, and then lots of iconography surrounding it everywhere. My favorite part, the snakes coiled on the swords down the sides, but then you get little things like the wings or the spikes and drops of blood all throughout that just give this one that classic Thirdway feel, but at the same time kind of paying homage to the layout of classic cards. Finishes out with that thin white poker border, and I really like the perforated postage stamp style that's done around the edges. Kind of gives it a unique feel or texture, I guess I'd say, to the back of the cards. So there's your back design, nicely done. You also get 4 jokers on this, and this is really where the lore of the deck is told in the 4 jokers. So each one of these is a character with their own little small story to them. Not as much lore as you'll see in some of his other decks, but couldn't get away from a Thirdway deck without a little bit of it. So talk a little bit about these 4 characters. Now, as you look at them, they're all done in kind of a tarot art style, which basically means kind of a 3/4 or a 2/3 body shot, one-way card here, and definitely has that tarot feel to it. But each one of the jokers is associated with one of the suits. So we see our first one here associated with a diamond suit. This is Lady Fortuna. She's the goddess of fate and chance. So lots of little symbols that sort of hint at her influence, the cornucopia of coins, or the kind of roulette wheel there in the corner. And then she has her hand extended there in blessing. So very cool. I love that combination of the shiny copper with that bright hit of red. All right, turning to the next one. No red on this one, but you get a little bit of blue mixed with that copper, another great color combination. And this is Lady Virtue. She's associated with a club. You can see that copper club pip on her chest. And she's the goddess of temperance, resolve, and courage. I love that shield there that she has in her hand, kind of in a defensive posture. Third one, this is sort of the villain, I guess you would say, or the hero, depending on your point of view of the deck. This is the god of egoism himself. He's a selfish god, and he uses his power to tempt mortals. Definitely has a much more sinister feel to him with the black and red robe, those sort of angry snakes crawling up out of his robe. And I love the style of his hair, almost kind of a lion's mane feel to it as it kind of sticks out in all those kind of wild angles. But very cool look to this one. This is my favorite of the 4 of them. All right, and then the last one, this is not one of the gods, but instead this is one of the mortals who kind of suffers from the temptation. This one's known as the Crownless King. He's a guy who's basically just searching for his purpose in life, and he's torn between good and evil. And you can see it kind of literally represented over his 2 shoulders. So you have the good on one side, or virtue on one side, and then evil or ego on the other side. Of course, you get a little hint which way he's leaning as his eyes are kind of turned towards the good side. So very cool quartet of jokers. Beautiful look to these overall, and my favorite part of the deck. All right, now into the aces. The aces have some more classic Giovanni line work on them, a mixture of gold metallic inks in there, or that copper, I should say, metallic inks, and some of that classic line work. Beautiful large spade pip with the negative space TW for Thirdway in the middle, and then the embellishments of the copper ink around it. Pretty classic, easy to read pip and index there in the corner as well. The other three all feature the large pip in the center, again embellished with lots of iconography, the spikes all the way around, or the crown at the top here on the diamond. There's your club. This one I love, that almost radiating with power with those spikes coming out. And then there's your heart. So very nice 4 aces. The number cards are relatively standard. Again, this is meant to be a deck inspired by a classic deck of cards. So other than the occasional odd little symbol here, like the chains you see in the middle, the pips are relatively standard. Slight customization to them, a little bit of a different font used in the corner, but these are going to be really familiar if you're used to a classic deck of playing cards. So the black cards are your classic black, the red cards are a bright, vivid red. Otherwise, not too much to say about these. Classic layout to the pips. These are going to be really familiar if you use these for gameplay. And then into the hearts. A little bit more elongated pips, but otherwise nothing too special. And then we get into the court cards. And this is really where Giovanni kind of played around with his art mixed with classic playing cards. So right off the bat, you're going to see a lot of elements of your standard French playing cards in these, the poses, the elements they're holding in their hands, but the line work and the faces especially really kind of makes this Giovanni's own. It kind of has his flair absolutely added to these with that line work. And the color scheme is kind of changed to match the rest of the deck. So instead of the classic red, yellow, blue, we get the red, but then we get that kind of darker blue and then the copper replacing the yellow. So it's a really cool color scheme to it as well. But as we flip through these, you'll see, like I said, very classic feel to them. But one of the things I really love that's added in these is the extra expression that's added in the faces. Like, you can see the anger in the Jack of Diamonds face there, or that sort of pensive look for the Queen of Diamonds. So he's really able to add a little bit of emotion, hinting at maybe a little bit of backstory that surrounds the characters. Maybe he couldn't help himself in putting a little bit of backstory in his head there. But very cool looks to the court cards. Great take on your classic deck of cards. And that's it. That is the look at the deck. Beautiful take. Love the finishes that were added with the Peacock edition of the deck. That gilding and the tuck case especially, that's the real winner to me. Now, as far as handling, considering this is a gilded deck, these actually handle pretty darn well. They fan smoothly, once you get them kind of broken in. They're a really nice handling deck of cards. That said, I doubt very many people are going to be pulling these out for doing much cardistry or anything like that. While this does have the feel in a lot of ways of the deck that could be used for gameplay, because it's such a rare deck with that gilding on the edges, I imagine this is going to be mostly a collector's deck. So if you want to use a deck like this but use it for gameplay, go pick up the Rust edition of the deck and use that one. This is really the collector's version of the deck. But overall, a beautiful deck through and through. So that's it. That is our Free the Pip Friday for Egoism Peacock. Beautiful deck. Definitely recommend checking out the Patreon if you haven't already. I am a huge fan of it, and if it produces more decks like this, I'm all in. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed this look at Egoism Peacock. Hey, make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews and unboxings. Let me know what else you want to see, and I'll see you for the next one.